Hello, welcome back to Pushing Buttons, a video game podcast where we express our opinions, ideas, concepts, and experiences. I am Kyle.
I'm Kevin. We haven't busted out that intro in a very long time.
Yeah,
and we are a part of the Geek Freaks Network, courtesy of Frank, and he is in the house today. Welcome, Frank.
Courtesy of Frank. I don't bring you Geek Freaks. It's a community, and we're all proud members.
You're the leader.
No, I told Disney Mom's Gone Wrong this. I'm not the leader of anything. I'm the intern in charge of coffee, at best. Yes, I'm the unpaid intern around here.
I heard that conversation. That's why I brought that up. Yeah.
Oh goodness.
It is a fascinating time for all of us. Today, though, we're going to be expressing our ideas, concepts. I don't know where this is going.
Pushing buttons, intros.
We're talking about digital versus physical, which we haven't done in a while. If you listen to Pushing Buttons Classic, which is what we refer to as our old show before we were part of the Geek Freaks Network, we did an episode on this. But on this current feed that you're listening to this show on right now, we did do an episode. What was that? Oh, it was distribution of games over the years.
Yeah.
We're kind of probably going to hit some of the same notes that we did on that episode, but that was more of a factual thing. This is going to be more subjective ideas, concepts, opinions, experiences type thing. So yeah, should be a very fun conversation.
Any podcast that gets past 20 episodes, I want to say you have to forgive them for repeating themselves. I've told the same stories on Geek Freaks. I don't know how many times at this point. It happens every time you get past 20 episodes, so forgive us.
I think that's the beauty of this podcast is it's more to do with the individual rather than the collaborative, and we can, have a space to share those thoughts. So,
and when the individual is me, opinions change so frequently that it's always new content.
Absolutely,
that's the way I look at it.
It's been a while, hasn't it, Kevin? Lots happened.
Been a while since what?
The last one, the quickfire review.
Oh. Yeah, we little peek behind the curtain. We recorded that a couple of weeks in advance, I want to say. Yeah, Kyle's gone through some life changes. Want to talk about that?
Indeed, yeah. Just moved to a new state from Oregon to Utah, and so far so good. I've been mostly just getting things organized and putting things as they are, helping family out with stuff, and it's been
you could be a little less putting stuff where it is and helping things with stuff. It's like you can hold off on some of those details if you really wanted to, Kyle.
Well, I'm worried about my newfound lifestyle where I just don't have energy at the moment because I'm exhausted from the whole process, and I'm still kind of adjusting to a whole new climate, and my allergies have been really bad here.
Ooh, yeah.
These past couple weeks. Apparently this area is notorious for really bad allergy seasons, and it happens 3 times a year. So that's something that I got to get adjusted to.
If you guys listening didn't know, also, Frank just got back from Lodi Comic-Con. There's a bunch of live recorded episodes of a couple different shows on the network. Do you want to talk about what happened while you were there?
Oh my God. Comic-Con is the funnest thing ever, guys. If you were to tell high school me that, like, hey, you know how you're a geek and you get bullied sometimes, but eventually there'll be a place where you guys all meet up. That's what Comic-Cons are. And we recorded a Disney Mom's Gone Wrong, Trek Freaks, and a regular Geek Freaks there, which was just basically us bullshitting and admiring the amazing cosplay, which we are now friends with some of those cosplayers, which is really cool. On my side of the business of things for podcasting, there was a lot of business cards exchanged and future interviews and stuff like that being set up. So I'm excited to share some of the local talent with the rest of the world. It was amazing. Please listen to all the live episodes. I think they were a lot of fun to do. They were a lot of work to edit. I think they're worth the listen myself. Yeah. And
in case you were not aware, Frank has an affected voice here, but he's hanging in there and staying strong. So.
Yeah, it's a perfect voice. So you guys, and I know this is what you guys.
I kind of wish it was always like that. Honestly, it's just
I do not.
I can listen to it all the time.
It is calmly relaxing. Like I can't describe it any other way.
Yeah.
It's like, there's an episode of How I Met Your Mother where everybody's smoking cigarettes, and Lily smokes so much that her voice, that voice right there, hey there, sweetheart. That's kind of what your voice reminds me of right now.
I can't even try to mimic that. That would hurt so much. Oh, man.
And Kevin, what have you been up to this past while? I know you've been looking into some new avenues of income.
Well, shoot, man. Without getting into too much detail, I've been going to a lot of retro game stores lately, and I don't for sure know if this is going to happen, but my current plan is to have a YouTube channel of all the video game stores around where I live in the Pacific Northwest. So, Northern Oregon, Southern Washington, maybe up to Northern Washington. I'm not sure yet, but in the Portland area alone, there's so many game stores that are just owned by so many cool people. I want to get to know them, shoot videos of their stores and show off what they have to offer, and see if I can pick up stuff. If you're watching a video of this, I've got a miniature Switch collection sitting next to me see if I can make that thing grow a little bit. Is what I'm attempting to do. So looking forward to that. That'll be fun.
Very nice. Very nice.
You got to make TikToks about that too, man. That sounds like such a good TikTok channel as well.
Oh, yeah. That's what we call bait. That's TikTok bait right there.
I'm excited to watch.
Well, to kick things off, we've been discussing a lot of stuff over on Geek Freaks lately. And one of the biggest responses that we've had to something that released last week, or 2 weeks ago at this point, is Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
And we are all, amazingly blown away by everything about it. Like me personally, as a new Star Trek watcher, it's fascinating to behold. And I actually had a question to ask you two. I wanted to ask it in the Geek Freaks recording, but we didn't have time. But, there's a character in that show called Chief Kyle. And I kind of used that as a self-insert. I'm like, okay, maybe this is what I would do for a living in Star Trek. I'd be the transporter guy. So my question to you two is, what role would you partake in or be in charge of on the Enterprise or any other Starfleet ship?
Well, first of all, I want to mention that Kyle has no idea that in the TOS episode Mirror Mirror, Mr. Kyle was the one that got agonized.
Yeah.
So just throwing that out there.
What's agonized mean?
It's a form of punishment. You put a pin on them and they like hurts and shocks. I don't know. It's a mirror universe thing.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
So yeah, Mr. Kyle got punished. just throwing that out there.
Isn't he also the one that gets attacked in? Yeah, I think he kind of gets attacked a lot, actually.
Yeah, he's the red shirt that doesn't die, apparently.
Yes, there it is.
Oh, great. Perfect role for me then. Great.
Is that what you would do then, Kyle? Do you want to answer the question first?
Well, I feel like I just did.
Okay.
I would be the transporter guy, if that's what it's called, teleporter guy.
If you do watch Star Trek, you know that Miles O'Brien is the most important person in Starfleet history, so you're in good company.
Oh, good.
I would actually, there isn't room for this on most ships past the Enterprise era, which is the prequel series, but I'd want to be a chef. That's what I would do, is cook alien foods. Neelix, I guess, was that role in Voyager, but they don't really have a chef. Oh, shoot, I guess even to some extent bartending. Guinan, Quark, you know. Yeah, those, either something to do with food, something to do with drinks, something in there. So I can hear the hot goss around the galaxy, especially if it's a Galaxy class ship. It would just make sense to say that. Yeah, that'd be really fun. Plus, Guinan is a very important person in Star Trek, and I love Quark. And people have very strong opinions on Neelix, and I think that I could fill those shoes pretty well too. So,
and with your love of Cooking Simulator, that makes sense.
There we go. Yes.
Yeah, I would be a captain. I wish I wasn't so vain, but it's just the truth. Literally, I've had dreams of being a captain on a starship. Which
this is where you say you would just be the intern that would give people coffee. Come on, we just discussed this. I'm not the boss. I'd be the captain.
Would be so humble. No, I like to think, because I've had dreams of being a captain. So Doctor Strange rules. that means that there's a multiverse out there where I'm a captain of a starship, baby, and I will dream walk into him. Check that out.
Very nice.
Did I mention that I've got the dark hole? No.
Yeah. Can you mail me the dark holes? I need to borrow it for a few days. Yeah, totally captain. I mean, who doesn't want to be a captain? I think we're being humble if we're not. We all want to be captain.
There's less responsibility if you're a chef. To some extent. I don't know. People get really picky about their food.
Sitting on the bridge, making those decisions, and that moment in Voyager when the EMH takes the command role and then gets the pins on him like he's the new captain was such a yell at your TV moment from my young childhood that will forever live rent free in my brain. So for sure yeah.
Awesome. No, great picks, guys. I really love hearing your feedback and your ideas for Star Trek because as a new viewer, like that's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
You should listen to Trek Freaks sometime. I think we actually
absolutely.
I think we had that question on Trek Freaks one time, and I think I even gave the same answer. So
really?
I think I'm actually being consistent for once in my life. Speaking of being consistent, I was singing the praises of digital distribution for video games, and I've been that way forever. Now I can kind of see both perspectives of it. So to kind of segue into the main topic today, digital distribution versus physical versions of games. There's a lot to be said on both topics. Off the top of your guys' head, I'm pretty sure I know where both of you are going to go with this. What do you guys think on this? Is there one that stands out more than the other, and why? Start with Frank.
I mean, complete respect for both, right? But I think at this point, I'm a digital guy. I like the idea that your library will stick with you. I know that there's that level of like, yeah, but there's no real true ownership. Really, you're just renting everything forever. So there's that. But the convenience is so easy that I'm like, okay, that's fine. Before streaming was a thing, I used to make hard drives full of emulators of movies, of TV shows, thinking that I could live off the grid and watch everything. And Spotify came out basically to stop piracy by making it too easy to not pirate. And I think that's what's happening with video games. And I'm kind of on board with that. But full respect to physical copies, really. Yeah.
I think with physical versus digital, there's a very fine line you can draw in regards to the history of video gaming. I would say, like, for me, that line is drawn, I would say, prior to the previous generation that we've had, which is PS4, Xbox One, Switch. Because everything leading up to that point, that was a really formative time for us because we were in our childhood, teens, young adulthood. And back then, physical copies had more value, I would say, to us, just purely through nostalgic reasons. But as we've seen over the course of history, like the physical copies are getting less and less. They just have less features.
Yeah.
Like one good example of this is the game manual. Like those original ones from like retro gaming are like fully fledged. You can flip through them and get artwork and stuff. And as we've gone more into the modern day, you don't really see that anymore. Basically, they've just completely digressed or devolved over time. And yeah, I think I do prefer both. And digital also has its strengths, as Frank said, for convenience. And also for the fact that, you could play it at any time you want. Like you don't have to have any requirements other than a decent computer or a console in this case. But yeah, I would say it definitely depends on where you fall in that gaming timeline.
Well, to your point, also pricing is a huge thing.
Yeah.
I brought up the Messenger on Geek Freaks on Monday. I have it right here, so if you're watching the video, see, I paid $279 for this at a game store.
That's crazy.
And it's the Messenger. I mean, I bought this game and played it in 2018, and I think it was $20 when it came out.
Yeah, it's like $5 today.
yeah, exactly. It's on sale right as the time of recording this. It's on sale, and I wanted to have it physically, so I paid a lot of money for it, way more than I would normally have considered it worth. But it's cool to physically have things, but the thing that started going in my brain, as I go through my opinions on digital games, I love digital games, but what happens when a library shuts down? And we talked about a couple weeks ago on Geek Freaks about how Sega's shutting down digital distribution of all their original Sega Genesis Sonic games in anticipation for the release of Sonic Origins. And yeah, that's just one kind of okay example because there's so many ways to get those games, and most people that want those games have them already. But what happens when a digital distribution platform shuts down? What happens when the eShop suddenly Nintendo comes out with a new console that can't run old games on the eShop, and you have to wait for them to port them or emulate them again? And in the meantime, you can't play them because you don't have the physical version of it. There's give and takes to both. So with me personally, with my collection, I'm physically collecting games that hit in a note with me emotionally, whether it be nostalgic purposes or games like I got Doom. That's Doom 1, 2, and 3. I love Doom 1 and 2. I was just telling Frank right before we started recording, Doom 2 is the very first FPS that I ever played, and I've got very strong memories of my childhood watching my dad play the original Doom online. So it holds some emotional, sentimental value to me. Indie games are great on the Switch because you'll be able to play them forever as long as you have a working Switch. The Switch cards don't degrade like CDs do or DVDs do over time. You don't have to blow the dust out like cartridges or clean them off with a Q-tip or whatever. They'll essentially have the potential to last forever, regardless, as long as you have the system to play it on. That's where I'm at with.
Is the hard part with those things. I've actually got Game Boy games I can't play anymore because the battery died on the side of them. And it's like, right. No.
At that point, the worst thing that happens is you lose your save on those, is you just swap out the battery and all's good.
It was Pokemon Silver, so that save's important.
Ooh, yeah. That sucks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Digital games are great though. Like I'm looking at my Steam profile right now. I've got 1,072 games on Steam. That's not amazing. To mention the like 300 games that I have on Epic, about 150 on Good Old Games. I've over time on the Xbox 360, I know I had probably a couple of dozen games on there, maybe even more. So I definitely go both ways, but I have rules and like lanes that I stick in with each thing. If I play a game that's $20 on Steam and I absolutely love it and call it my 2018 game of the year, I want to have a physical version of it when it hits me that hard, you know? That's just where I'm at with it.
I'm sorry, real quick. Very tough year to say that's the game of the year. 2018 is a year in gaming that will not be repeated easily for a very long time.
It wasn't actually my game. It was my number 2 game, but it was my number 2 choice.
Impressive.
But it was a $20 indie game, so that being my number 2 for the year was just, that's how good The Messenger is, by the way. It's on, if you're listening to this while it's on sale, it's really cheap on Steam right now. Buy it, play it. It's fun.
I believe it was free on Epic at one point, and that's where I played it. I'm not positive, though. But yeah, check it out, guys.
Do you guys have any different rules that you'll budge on when it comes to that like I do? Like, what makes you want to buy a physical game versus buying them digitally?
You want to go first, Kyle? Because I'm about to repeat a fucking record like I always do. Go for it, man.
No worries. Yeah, I would say there's definitely some guidelines I follow, mainly for retro gaming. Like, for me, my first real console that I cherished as a child was the N64.
Yeah.
So I love to retain those. And, I have a really long story about my original N64 and how I had to sell it. And that definitely was something I wish I didn't have to do as a kid, but I had to get a GameCube. And yeah, the feeling to recollect that and to re-experience that definitely holds a strong note. And yeah, I was really shocked to see how collectible that's gotten in the last handful of years. We both, Kevin, you and I, before I came to Utah, we went on these hunts together. And I was just astounded by the prices of some of these N64 games. And not to mention, finding them complete in box, which is almost impossible now. But the cartridges themselves can go anywhere from like $50 to over $100. And I was just floored by that. I'm like, wow, there's still a lot of intrinsic value in the cartridge itself that it can still be played even on an N64 almost 30 years later. it's astounding to me because I was just so caught up in keeping up with modern gaming over the years that I just completely neglected retro gaming because it's like, okay, I've done that. I'll move on, you know. But as I'm getting older, I'm wanting to re-experience the feelings I had playing those original games physically, like actually holding the cartridge, the feeling of putting it inside the system, you know, flipping the switch on as opposed to pressing a button on modern consoles. Like, you just can't replace that feeling with modern day consoles or a PC even, when everything is just, you know, click a button and you have the game installed and you're done.
Me and I mentioned this on Geek Freaks. Actually, we keep saying that, but it's a good cross promotion. Go check it out, guys. Me and Tyler were talking, and he's really big into collecting retro games right now, and he's big on the CRT TVs. And I was telling him, like, oh yeah, Kyle's nuts for these things, you know, explaining. And he said the reason he's getting so big into them is that for the esports that he's currently involved in, specifically, he's working on this new Tetris game. He's going to be competing in a Tetris tournament soon. They're all on CRT TVs. There is almost no latency there. So you actually have to relearn how to play because just naturally you built in the lag from LEDs. But on the old CRT TV, there's none. So you have to get used to that. So he's actually like retraining himself with these old TVs. And it actually, you know, just throw this out there as another topic, another time kind of thing. Me and him talked about how this has to be a pushing buttons is all the like niche gaming groups or odd gaming groups that are out there that are just so dedicated, and it's fascinating to learn about them. I soak it up. I just think it's so neat.
Well, on top of that, there's, I don't know if this is kind of what you meant, but there's people that are wanting to collect these things simply to keep the history of it alive.
Yeah.
Like basically have it belongs in a museum level. Like I bought a Sega Genesis, and like I don't realize until I was talking to the guy that owns one of the retro gaming stores in the town that I live in, was like, yeah, I've got one of those at home. I consider it worth pennies. I'm like, that's my childhood. That's worth pennies to you.
Yeah.
And it belongs in a museum. But other people look at it and it's like, yeah, the Sega Genesis, it had maybe 5-6 good games, but it's not a GameCube, man, where you could like throw a dart and hit a good GameCube game if you're at a good gaming store.
Yeah.
The good GameCube games were all over the place, and I never played a GameCube. So now I'm trying to think from the perspective of, like, I've never played a GameCube, so maybe I should buy one to try to play these games. But there are people that have that mindset that are maybe younger than us that haven't played anything before the GameCube, such as the N64, the Sega Genesis, even a fucking Dreamcast, for crying out loud. Yeah. Those things, man. I saw 3DX in person, or 3DX, 3D. 32X, sorry, a 32X, the attachment for the Sega Genesis that plays the 32-bit cartridges, for the first time at a retro game store, somewhat locally, when I was hunting with Kyle the other week, month, whenever that was. It was the first time I saw a 32X, and I'm like, oh man, I want one of those because I've never seen one before. There's some intrinsic value to being able to hold the video game history in your hand and say, I have this and I will be forever taking care of this.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot to be said for that.
I agree with that too.
I think,
go ahead, Frank.
Oh yeah, just real quick. I think we should all share pictures with each other, and then we'll put them up on the socials after this episode comes out, of our console collections. In my dining room, I've got a 3 big bookshelves, and some of the bookshelves that I have 2,600. I've got they're dedicated to different systems. So I'll have like the NES shelf has the NES controllers, and some of the games that I like the most on it. The N64 section has N64, Diddy Kong Racing, Mario Kart over here, and 2 controllers. And you display them with a mix of, like, the N64 is one of the most iconic systems ever created. Plus, the Diddy Kong Racing cartridge in there is a little piece of me in it. So, you know, there's a little mix of, like, this system needs to be represented. Plus, these are the parts that I identify with. And not a lot of collectors or historical items have that significance that I think consoles do for us, you know? So it's just extra cool.
Because we lived through it as it was coming out, and we want people that have the same mindset of us, of games are fucking awesome.
Yes.
To be able to go back and play those things with the same feelings that we had when we played them as kids. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say I'm at a point in my life where I'm not really looking forward to much in regards to modern releases, and I'm seeing myself more as okay. I'm at this point in my life where my childhood is starting to get further away than my future adulthood.
Yeah.
And that's
We're
like
old
a
as shit.
big
I get it.
eye opener. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, they call that a midlife crisis, buddy.
I was gonna say that.
I think that's what our game hunts were about, actually. Just to put that into context.
Chasing our childhood. That's what I kept saying too.
Yeah. But I was kind of going through a lot of the stuff I owned, and I was actually being like surprised by what I had that I totally forgot about. Like in regards to old games that I had, or posters that I've collected, or strategy guides I've kept over the years. And, I'm really excited to kind of go through that again and re-experience that joy I had. And with digital, you can't really do that as well. I think that's physical's main strength, is that you know, it's tied with memories. And having those memories, and that kind of authenticates yourself. Like, yes, I went through this experience and it has a lot of value to me. And, there's games that have come out recently that I love the heck out of, like Resident Evil 8, but it doesn't have the same feeling as Resident Evil 4 back on the GameCube. When I played that for the first time, it blew me away. And
Yeah.
Resident Evil 8 was very much made to be similar to Resident Evil 4, but it didn't have the same punch because it was calling back on something I've already experienced. And I feel like games nowadays do that a lot. We see that with remakes and remasters and stuff like that. And, there's a remake I'm really looking forward to for Dead Space that's coming out in January next year. And as a huge fan of the franchise, I hold that game dearly. Like that was my first game in HD that I ever played. And with this remake, I've been watching the developer live streams, and they're giving it so much love and attention to detail. Like, as a fan, that's reinvigorating my passion for new releases again. And I'd love to see that moving forward.
When you go out, and so you're talking about how Resident Evil 4 has a different feel than Resident Evil 8 for you. So when you go out to collect Resident Evil 4, the physical version of it, are you going out to play it because you want to try to recapture that memory, or are you going out of it as respect to put it up on a shelf? Which way are you collecting physical copies?
I would say more out of respect.
Yeah,
because
same.
Resident Evil 4 has made so many ports over the years. Like, there's the Wii one, which I have. I don't have my original GameCube one anymore, which I was surprised to learn when I got to Utah.
Yeah.
I was like, dang it, I got to get that again. But, they've re-released that game so many times over the years, even on Steam as a digital release. And I have bought that digital release. I haven't played it because I know what to expect. I know what the game is. But for me, I'd rather go back and replay the old 2005 GameCube edition, because that I have actual memories associated with. And it came out during a really transformative time. This was like my junior year of high school. So I'd love to revisit that and kind of go, okay, here's how I've grown since then. Like, what do I appreciate now about the game, as opposed to back then when it was all fresh and new? And part of me just wants to recollect games for that feeling again, while also paying my respects to it, in essence.
I think that's where the digital and physical versions can work so well together, is we buy the physical versions as collectors and kind of memorize or whatever, make them collectibles. Words are hard.
Memorialize.
That's the word. Thank you.
Yes.
But yet, for convenience, and I mean, honestly, they're just so cheap half the time, be able to buy the digital version to play at our comfort. I would rather play a digital version of an N64 game on the Switch. Ooh, if I could ever get the damn controller for it, that's the right one. Or even on the PC, where it's like, hey, I'm talking with friends, I'm making the best version of that game here, and yet have that cartridge sit on itself and just look beautiful there. So I think the two can work quite well together if we let them,
So
I go ahead, Kevin.
No, you can go for it.
No, I had a really interesting point. I remember we talked about timeless games, and you brought up GoldenEye. And I was like, I don't know. I think it aged too much. Like, I was going off of my memory, right? So that was one of the first games I actually played when I moved here. And the memories that came flooding back while physically playing it, like I even felt my old muscle memory come back with playing the game. And that's something you can't replicate
That's cool.
digital. And I was thinking to myself, wow, GoldenEye actually is fun to play still. And, you know, the graphics are dated, of course, but the gameplay is so solid. Like, it still feels great to play today. And only someone who played the original way back when it first came out can understand and take that into consideration when it comes to digital versus physical.
So for me personally, what I was starting to collect when Kyle and I started our retro game hunts was I was looking to buy my childhood. Like, I wanted those, sitting down and playing the Genesis right behind where I'm sitting now, and Kyle was sitting here watching me test a couple of games. I nearly beat World of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck while testing it. I meant to play it for 12 seconds to test it out. I ended up playing it for like, I don't know, it was probably 15, 20 minutes, but it's a short game.
Yeah.
I could have just sat down and continued playing that to completion just because it brought back so many of those, like you're saying with GoldenEye, so many of those memories, and it felt natural again. On the other hand, I noticed while we were out how, I keep saying the word versatile the Switch is, but not just with how it's portable and you can play it on your TV, but with the physical games on it. Limited run, super rare, all those limited print games, game companies, publishers are doing things like the classic Doom collection. The limited runs doing a Star Wars The Force Unleashed box set that has, you know, all the little, it's got like a little lightsaber hilt, and it's got a light up holocron and stuff like that. But just with the stack of just plain old games, I want somebody to be able to look at my physical video game collection and understand me. That's what it is to me, is it tells the story of who I am throughout the years.
Tells the story of Kevin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Nice. But yeah, with the Sega Genesis is the earliest console that I currently own because it was the first console I ever played. I just recently bought an original Xbox because it was the first console that was mine and not my siblings and mine. It wasn't a family console like the Genesis and the N64 were. I still have my childhood N64 that I don't think works. But I've got the Genesis, and I've got the N64, and I've got the Xbox, and that was my childhood. And on the Switch now, I'm able to collect games that are remakes or just re-releases of games from my childhood, as well as the just surplus of indie games that come out, and they're cheaper to get digitally, of course, which is, we've talked about that already, but just be able to see the games that I truly love and adore, and you can tell the developers put more time and effort or creativity into consideration when making these games, and that's the kind of game that I want. So if you look at my stack of Switch games, you'd be like, oh, those are the kind of games you like. I understand you. That's what I think I'm looking for with my physical collection.
Question for you guys. Is there a modern game that came out, I'm thinking of a few of them really, that you would buy the physical copy for out of respect? And I'll start us off while you guys think. Two of them for me. Sea of Thieves, I would buy the physical copy for if I could. And the other one is Hades. Hades feels like a game that I want the physical copy for on whatever system. I played it on PC. Look at that son of a bitch. Look at him. I want that out of respect.
Sealed. It's sealed. I've got my sealed copy of Hades I bought new at GameStop.
For me, I think I'd open it up.
Yeah.
But, out of respect, really. Any for you guys?
Yeah, honestly, I can list a couple, but go ahead, Kevin.
I was going to say it's available digitally as well, and most people have it physically. I don't care for Breath of the Wild that much.
Yeah.
But it's such a historic game for the Switch, and it's what allowed the Switch to become the system it is. It's not my favorite Zelda game. It's definitely not my favorite Switch game. But I'm super glad that I have this. As far as games that I didn't know I could own physically until I was going out with Kyle. Once again, you're going to have to look at the camera or the video version of this. Spelunky. This is a collector's edition for Spelunky that I didn't know exist. And this is the game that got me back into video games in 2013-ish. That actually gave me hope for new games coming out in the future. It was Spelunky, and the fact that I can own this physically with, the Olmec head, in there, and it's still sealed too. But
it's so cool looking.
And it would have been my answer to your question. This or the Binding of Isaac, which I have the Binding of Isaac Repentance on the Switch on pre-order right now, so I'm getting that one too. So kind of a cop-out answer because I don't really have one, but Star Wars Galaxies would be my other answer, but I've got 2 boxes of that on my shelf sitting behind me, so that, like I said, people can understand me just by looking at my video games.
Yeah, I mean, for me, clearly my number one is Celeste, also released in 2018. Aside from God of War, I would definitely pick Celeste as my game of the year. I guess that's the AAA game of the year, and Celeste is my indie game of the year.
Yeah.
If we want to categorize them that way. Celeste was such a tremendous game that took me by complete surprise, and I just loved everything about it. Like, just from a player standpoint, from a developer standpoint, the story it told, and how that also relates to the developer's journey as well. I just felt like overall I would love to have a physical representation of that, because it was such a huge capstone for that year for me, because I played that late 2018.
Yeah.
And then we did our Game of the Year episode for Pushing Buttons, the original OG Pushing Buttons. So that was a lot of memories tied to that particular game.
It is available physically. It's just rather expensive.
Yeah. It's a bit out of my price range right now. But,
price
one day
sometimes.
Yeah.
By the way, we're gonna link to the classic Pushing Buttons underneath this, guys. Go check it out, follow it. I mean, it's how I fell in love with the guys, so please check that out. It'll be in the description below.
Indeed.
Okay, here we go. Here's my broken record, guys. Here's something I think one of the best versions of virtual versus physical here. World of Warcraft. Of course I gotta talk about this. A completely digital game, really, right? You could buy the physical copies, but that's all it's doing is unlocking the next section. But they did something so cool. So at one point, and Kyle, you probably remember this, they were going to modernize the servers. And so what they did was they took the old server blades, which had each server on them, and they auctioned them off for charity. And I have never wanted something more in my life when that happened. Ner'zhul was sitting there. My character was sitting there on a server blade that ran the world. And they sold for a crazy amount of money. They raised money for charity. It was a phenomenal event. One of the creators I follow and have met in real life, actually, Talia and Everton, go check them out if you're WoW fans. They have a server blade sitting behind them that they were given by Blizzard, and I am fixated on that every time they talk. I want one so bad. Specifically Ner'zhul, but I'll take any of them, really. And it's just an old, to think it really means nothing to anybody else. It's outdated technology. But my world existed on that. I hung out with my friends on that blade. And that just means so much to me. I couldn't even play it today if I wanted to. I mean, boy, I wonder if I could. But anyways, I don't think I can even play it today if I wanted to. But it's out there. And, I think that's one of the best versions of a digital form, something coming to physical. And there's a collector's edition that me and my friends have gotten over the years. There are these really cool box sets that, for the most part, we're buying it just so we could put the box next to the other ones, But that server blade move was, I remember just being like, I'll sell my car for that thing. It was so freaking cool. And I had to shout that out. That was one of the coolest things I've seen.
Going back to the WoW boxes, like for me, I've always liked collecting the standard ones with the flaps that open up and show off the features of the expansion. But they stopped doing that with BFA, and we don't have a BFA one or Shadowlands one. So that was a really stupid thing, in my opinion. They only had the physical collector's edition, but not the actual standard physical.
Yeah, so not cost effective, but it's fun.
I know, but I loved collecting those, and it's a shame to not see those continued anymore, especially with Dragonflight coming out as well.
When you get a chance, Kyle, open up the Wrath of the Lich King one. It shows a feature that was never put in the game. To this day, still not put in the game. They plan on having aerial combat in the game, and they took it out right before release. But they printed the boxes beforehand. So on the box, it talks about aerial flights coming to World of Warcraft or aerial combat. They took it out of the game, though. So it's, I just like
look at that
part.
when I pull it out.
Yeah, nice. It's in the collector's edition too if you open it up. Yeah, pretty neat.
One of the other things that got me thinking about was Star Trek Online. there are services available that you can customize your ship in the game. You can get a 3D printed version of your in-game ship. It's probably not the same as, having the server that you actually played the game on, but it still serves to have some sort of, you can look at it and be like, oh yeah, that was my ship in this game. I played on that. My friends and I hung out at whatever version of 10.4 you want, whatever you called your bar or your lounge on your ship. We hung out there and we explored strange new worlds on that ship. That kind of shit I've never done it. But if I could get like a miniature version of my character with a bigger version of the ship, that would be so freaking cool. I'd be very tempted to do something like that. And there should be, I wish there was more digital to physical adaptations, like physical versions of the digital stuff that you could keep and like have as a memento to your time in that game or in that world, especially with an MMO when you're hanging out with other people while you're doing it. And those memories are just so strong, and they flood back the way that Kyle trying out GoldenEye on the N64 did. It just makes all those memories flood back again.
Yeah,
I think that's that probably would have been a better title or theme of this episode, is what makes you have memories of video games.
We've already done nostalgia, guys. Like I said, after 20 episodes, they repeat. Just get ready for it. You're hanging out with us. That's the main thing.
Through a new perspective, and I'm sure there are a bunch of people out there that have varying perspectives on this too. And we're not closing out the episode, but this would be a good time to remind you, if you do have varying perspectives or want to talk about your own collection, share your own collection, our Discord server is always open, and we're hanging out there quite often. And hit us up there, because I love to talk about, and I'm really passionate about this stuff right now, and I know there are others too that are. So share your collection. Tell us what games that you do want and that you've had a hard time finding, and ones that you've been surprised that you've been able to find, because it's so much fun being able to do that.
Share those success stories. Is one of my favorite parts about Discord. Is people share their success stories on finding a game or doing something in a game they haven't been able to do. People will share it, and I have so many times told like somebody, Fly Pirate, hey, good job on that. I don't play the game, but I know the effort it took, and I'm happy to celebrate it with you. That's cool. Yeah, and coming up.
I don't know what to transition into
well, you
now,
but I said at the end of the episode, so
I did say
going.
that.
You did not.
What is the pride and joy of your guys' physical collection?
Oh, great.
Oh my goodness.
One thing.
Damn.
I'll give you some time to think about that. I already talked about mine, because as of right now, it's still so recent for me, the Messenger, just being able to actually find that in a store and buy that when it was at the top of my wants list. I probably have some other and more either valuable or sentimentally valuable items in my collection. I recently went through my collection and separated stuff that I want to sell off, which is, as hard as that is, sell off some of the stuff versus I'm basically Marie Kondoing my entire catalog of physical stuff. And that's going to at some point include my Star Wars books.
Oh,
FYI.
Yeah.
That's gonna be hard. That'll be fun though, I think.
Yeah.
So the Messenger on Switch is my physical. I considered it a holy grail, and I found it like day 2, so it wasn't that much of a grail. But anyway, you guys have one yet?
After this recording, I plan on doing that same thing, going through everything and cataloging and just seeing what I have and have yet to get. But I was going through it last weekend, and one of the coolest things I found in there that I totally forgot about was a Resident Evil 4 GameCube demo disc. And it actually has not for resale on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like a short preview of the game. Like, I think of just the village where you're at the very beginning of the game. And I thought that was really interesting. But as far as Pride and Joy goes, I would say probably my Dark Souls collector's editions that I've gotten over the years. Like, I'm really fond of everything about that franchise and all the strategy guides I've collected for that as well.
For myself, I have, as a child, always been a collector. And a lot of my best collections are things I've kept as a kid, knowing someday I'll be proud of it. So like on the wall over here, not game-wise, I actually have my very first comic book I ever bought. It's on this wall along with other ones that mean a lot to me. And as for my console collection, I would buy these consoles when they were new And then once the next thing came out, I didn't throw them away. I boxed them up and stored them in my closet because I knew someday I want a wall with all these things on them. And now I have it. And so
that's awesome.
The pride of my collection is that all my retro, most of my retro collection are the consoles I played as a kid. And most of them still work. That that Game Boy, I can't get to fire back up. I'm trying. But I have my Game Boy Color. That's the Pokemon one. That's the blue on the back, yellow on the front.
Nice.
And they're all from my childhood, literally. So that's my if this house burns down, I'll grab those and probably the dogs and head out. Yeah.
Frank, I'm actually learning how to restore game consoles because my original Xbox doesn't power on anymore, and I'm trying to learn how to fix those.
Yeah.
And I bought an original fat PS2. Funnily enough, Kevin, from the same game store owner you talked to about the Sega Genesis. It was his original childhood PS2, and I felt so bad for buying it for $10.
He probably did not care, though, but knowing him.
He didn't care. Yeah. And I was like, are you really sure you want me to buy this from you? He's like, yeah, take it. I'm like, okay, it's in good hands. I'll get it fixed and try and play some old games on it. But I'm planning on maybe making some YouTube videos on that as well.
We'll see. Nice.
Might be a cool side project.
I restored my N64. It wasn't working at one point, and so I took it apart and restored it. And that was such a surreal moment for me, putting it back together, putting in that Diddy Kong Racing. And it had the saves of me, my brother, and both my brothers on there still with our initials and the last balloons and stuff like that. And it was like that save is 20 years old, and it's still there, and it's literally a slice of my childhood. Because talk about completing a game. There's secret levels in Diddy Kong Racing, guys. We've unlocked every one of them, and you can see the amount of balloons we each had on each of our saves. And the fact that I could turn that thing on and see those saves, I just was like, this has just become the most valuable thing in my house to me, because it's literally just me and my brothers, before wives, before having our own kids and rent and all that stuff, just having this game. And it was really, really special.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys this.
Yeah.
I know we kind of talked about it already, but is there something that you have yet to attain that you're dying to get your hands back on?
Ooh.
Something from our childhood?
That you lost, yeah.
Sonic 3, I'm still looking for a complete in box. I'm still looking for that on the Sega Genesis. I can't find one complete in box, like in the hard plastic box. It's insane that I can't find one, except buying one online for a very outrageous price. So that right there is the one thing, the biggest thing for me.
And for me, I lost not only my original N64 collection, which I've gotten, back again, but it's not my actual copies, but also the Game Boy stuff. I lost all my Game Boys, like the original Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. I never had an Advance, but I had the Advance SP. And I would love to get those back again, along with the games I played on them. But that's way down the road.
I'd say for myself, I'd like to get my Game Boy Advance back. It was this, I want the exact color, guys. It's got like purplish see-through from the original Game Boy Advance, which I think was the perfectly like portion designed console. It felt so good in your hands. I would love to get that back, playing some Golden Sun on that thing and some Pokemon. So many really good RPGs. I sunk time in on that thing. Advance Wars, all those things. So I never that I don't have anymore, and I don't know what happened to it. But I would like to get that exact color back. That's the one I need to find.
Nice.
I don't have anything else. Do you guys have anything else you wanted
to? Good to go. Yeah.
So one final wrap up, I guess. So physical versus digital. I think we've all determined and defined what that means to the three of us. Mm-hmm. But, for you, the listeners, we would love to hear your feedback on it as well. Like, where do you draw the line? Where do you, make your claim on nostalgia or, being entirely in the modern? Let us know.
Hit us up on Twitter at Geek Freaks Pod, our Discord, Instagram. I promise I check Instagram. All those things like that. I will also throw out, please drop a review for this podcast. We really need them. They help us in the numbers. Basically, we can't climb a chart like we do great listen wise. We need the reviews to be seen on the charts though. So please drop us a review. 5 stars would be good, but you do you. You do you. Just drop us those reviews.
Awesome. Yeah. If you like listening to us and you want other people to listen to us, that would help us out a great deal. But first and foremost, we want to listen. We want to talk with you guys. So join the Discord, hit us up on Twitter. All the things that Frank and Kyle already mentioned. Do that because we love talking to you guys, and that was the entire premise of Pushing Buttons from the beginning, and that's why we're such a great fit with the Geek Freaks Network, and that's what all of us at Geek Freaks are all about. So yeah, join us, and yeah, I think that's about it for this time. We'll be back next week with a topic for that time, but I don't know why I'm talking like a robot, moving my head like one.
Bleep, bloop,
but
bleep,
I guess I'm as bad at outros as I am at intros, and I love it. Anyway, we'll see you guys same place, same time next week.
See you guys.
Yeah. Love you.
Adios.